guys, this is actually a writing video. This is Storycraft Part 4. This is the first video of several that I will spend talking about plot. Plot is, I will define it as the execution of events in a story. And it's the thing that writers are very, very often most concerned with, and for good reason, because if you're not executing the story well, then nobody's going to really care what you have to say. The events are what are really going to make your story exist and happen. But before I could talk about like really big stuff like structure and how to structure what you're doing, and because you have to take into account length and pacing and all sorts of stuff like that, I want to talk about one important concept to story writing, which is that of tension and release. Whenever you're writing a scene, you need to either be adding tension in or you need to be releasing tension from something else. You have to be creating conflict or resolving conflict. And the same thing is actually true in music. We have a really, really great parallel in music because music is all about tension and release. Drama and music have something very, very important in common. And by drama, I'm using the broadest sense, including writing, which is that they occur over time. Even if you're reading a book, you're reading it over time. Whereas other static art like painting or sculpture, that's sort of frozen in time. It's not going to create this sort of tension release, this conflict resolution that happens in art that takes place over time. So it's really important to acknowledge that truth and to use it to your benefit as an artist. If you are creating something that has no tension in it, that's all resting on one chord, so to speak, the listener's going to turn off. They're going to get very interested. They're going to get very uninterested, and they're going to want to hear something else. If you are able to add tension into that, then all of a sudden the listener is a lot more interested in what you're doing. The viewer of your story, when they are able to see conflict and then see it resolved, they're going to be more interested in what you're doing. Now, if you resolve all conflict, then the reader, the viewer, they might want to close the book because they're like, well, I guess the story's done. Obviously, with the book you see, there's like more. So that can disrupt somebody if you resolve all the tension. You want to keep that tension moving forward and hopefully like continue raising the stakes to keep them interested. And if you're very good at this cycle, you can have people read very long books of yours and have them not be uninterested, never have them want to put the book down and continue to want to like turn the pages. A good page turner has this cycle, working really well. When one thing is resolved, they immediately add more tension, they create more conflict, and so the story just keeps going on and on. Now, I like to think of when you're writing a scene, you need to be doing like three basic things. You need to be exposing setting, developing characters, or executing the events of the plot. If you're not doing one of those three things, then the scene is ultimately a waste. Ideally, you're doing all of those at once. That's efficient writing, if you're able to do them all at once. You have an event that exposes something important about the characters, which in turn also exposes something important about your world, your setting, and the viewer, the reader, is able to get all the information in a like condensed form, rather than having you be like, well, here's the way the world is, and now let's talk about this character, and now we'll have stuff happen. It's like you can do that. That's one way of doing it, but a good efficient writer will have like everything happening at once. And because of that creates that sort of constant tension that really keeps the pages turning away. So I like to think of when you're writing, it's like a phrase of music. You are trying to build up tension, and then when you resolve it, you're also trying to turn that resolution into hopefully the next part a little bit. So you build up tension. Add some back in. And then start the next one. Then raise the stakes higher. For the third phrase, you're going to raise the stakes even higher. pretty tense. Before we go on to the next phrase. So a good bout of writing is going to be like a good series of musical phrases that we're building up to a climax. And we have a continuing tension as things are moving forward. We hear them moving forward, but we hear them also continuing to add tension. So we know the resolution's coming, but we're putting it off, and then we finally get there. It's very satisfying. When we write, whether it's a short story or it's something much longer, that concept is always the same. That every single scene we need to be adding tension or we need to be resolving tension, just like we do in music. So I really like to get out my guitar and make that connection, and hopefully you can hear it, because in music we can do it in a very... We're going to add some tension. And then finally resolve that tension. So whatever song that you might be doing, a good song is going to have that tension really building up and going forward. And it's the same thing when you're writing. So the next time you think about story crafting, when you're creating something that is going to be cool and interesting, think about that tension and resolution, the conflict and the resolution. When you create mystery, you make the person want to turn the page. When you resolve that mystery, that tends to want to be the end of it. So whenever you resolve it, you're going to have to create the next thing that's going to keep the viewer, keep the listener, keep whoever is enjoying your art sort of going forward on that. And I hope that this has been an interesting analogy for you, and hopefully you'll forgive like my little mistakes when I play just sort of stuff off the cuff. In case you're wondering, the first piece I played was Villa-Lobos Prelude 1. It's a Brazilian piece by Heitor Villa-Lobos, who is a Brazilian classical composer. The second one, of course, is Blackbird by Paul McCartney. In case that satisfies your curiosity, I really appreciate you watching and interacting with me on these videos and giving me your input and your curiosity. Next week we'll talk about like bigger forms, I think. But this concept is really important, because if we don't have the concept of how tension and release are working kind of on the micro level, then trying to put it into a bigger form is not gonna make your story suddenly good, right? You have to understand the little stuff before you get to the big stuff. But I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can read some of my fiction at dvspress.com. I should hopefully have some new stuff going up soon. And I really, really do appreciate all the comments. So don't forget to comment and let me know what you think and what you want to see. I do try to get to it when I can. It's not always timely, but I make my best effort because I want to deliver what you guys want to see. Okay, thanks.